Hello, someone just wrote me on Twitter about the Starcraft betting blog that I made, and I actually thought his tweets were quite interesting. I thought he had some misconceptions, um, and so I decided to actually make another video. And this video will be about market efficiency in betting markets. And as some of you might know, I played quite a lot of poker in the past. I played for about 2-3 years, and I also did some sports betting in the time. Not so much. I got more into it with Starcraft about 2 years ago, and I read some books about sports betting. And generally I'm super interested in gambling and not only poker but also sports betting, and generally I try to find forms of gambling where you can actually win something and not lose, like in roulette or whatever. I don't believe in roulette systems and those kind of shenanigans. So I want to talk to you a bit about market efficiency in betting markets. I have your little note sheet here so I don't forget anything. Anyways, like a betting market, it's a lot like a stock market. Like in a stock market, basically, if you have an information that like other people don't have, then you can use that information to buy or sell certain stocks, or make how do you say, that you short someone, like that you sell the stock in the future. I don't know the English word. I think it's called short, to short a company. Like if you sell their stocks, like if you make basically a contract to sell the stock in a month or something like that. Anyway, so if you know that like a certain company will do good in the future, you buy their stocks. If you think they will do bad, like you short them. And so like a betting market is very similar to that. So for example, let's not talk about Starcraft, but like in a football game, if you know a certain team, like one player is injured, and the news is very new, and it's a very important player, then of course it makes sense to bet against this team for their next match. And so you use the advantage in information that you have, and you use it to make a bet that has a positive expectation. And that's basically the same as in a stock market. Like you use information and you can turn it into money, basically. Of course, there's a lot of variance both in the stock market and in betting markets, because the team can still win, or even if one of their players is injured, but the chances are lowered than they were before it was known that the player would be injured. And so in betting, to make money with betting, you need an advantage in information over the market. And you don't only need an advantage, but an advantage needs to have a certain size. So having a very small information advantage is not good enough, because in betting, the bookmaker puts juice on the line. And for example, to say it in American odds, like the standard juice is to have on a coin flip a minus 110 line. That means you have to bet minus 110. Sorry, you have to bet 110 dollar to win 100 in a coin flip. So obviously that's minus EV for you. Minus EV is minus expected value, so negative expected value, and plus EV is positive expected value. And so obviously you would never bet on a coin flip if you get a line of minus 110. So only if you know that you win the coin flip more than, I think it's 52.5% of the time, then you would take the minus. Then you would take the minus 110 line. And so it's not enough to have like a 1% information advantage, so to say. It needs to be like decent, otherwise you still lose. So now you might wonder, like, what should I bet on? Well, obviously you can bet on StarCraft, but many people, like most people in this world, bet like on, I guess the biggest markets are football in Europe. I think especially in Asia, actually football is very popular to bet on. Um, and of course there's the American sports like NFL. I think like the biggest, like you can bet like 50k euros at once on NFL. I think NBA it's like 30k, and like NHL it's like 10k or something like that. I'm not exactly sure on about that. But you have like, you can bet very very big amounts of money at once. At once means you can bet more than one time, of course, but after you bet, the bookmaker can make the line worse for you. So if you bet again, the odds get worse, and then maybe it's not plus EV anymore. So the size, like the size of the market, is actually very important, because the bigger the market, the more money you can bet at once, and so the bigger like total winnings you can have, like as a money sum. Of course, percentage-wise, your winnings might not be that bigger, but if you have a lot of money and you can bet 50k at once, like even if you only like have a return on investment of like plus 1% or so, well, that's not so bad. I would say 500 per bet. So generally, I would advise not to bet on big markets like football, like for example Champions League or NFL, like even like the German Bundesliga or like the Premier League in England. Those are very big markets, and so they are very efficient, because the bigger the market, the more incentive do like big bettors have to create models and to like collect inside knowledge to beat those markets. And once so when a line is inefficient, people will bet until it's efficient. Also, the bigger a market, usually the bigger it is, the longer it has been around, and the better the models of the bookmakers are to create efficient lines right away, so that there's no point, like there's no point before the match that the line is actually inefficient. So all the bets that come in are inefficient bets, and that means that the bookmaker wins. I mean, like somehow those businesses have to stay. I mean, there's quite many bookmakers in this world, and yeah, there have to be people who bet on inefficient lines, obviously, otherwise those businesses wouldn't be there and they wouldn't be so big. So to explain a bit like how how it works, that the lines, especially in big markets, have to be so efficient. Basically, if you know more than the market, and you know more like often, then you will bet, obviously, because, well, if you know more and you know a line is inefficient, with inefficient I mean is that you can bet on it with a positive expectation, and then you will bet on it, obviously, because, well, most people in this world like money. I mean, there's some hippies and shit that they don't, but like most people like money, me included, by the way. So when you bet on a line, the bookmaker obviously sees that, and if the bookmaker sees a big bet, like I think small bets, I mean, depends on the market, but like if you bet a lot of money on a line, the bookmaker will see that, and he will move the line to make the line that you bet on worse. So for example, if there's presumably a coin flip, and there's -110 on A and B, or heads and tails. Let's say you bet now, let's presume that coin flip is NFL or whatever, and you bet 50k on tails. Then the line will move to, let's say, -115, and the other side will move to -105, because maybe it's actually not a coin flip after all, because you know more than the bookmaker, especially if you put so much money. Then the bookmaker will move the line, and so maybe the real line is -113 and -107. But if the line is -115, I'm sorry, I just got that mixed up. If the real line is -105 and +105, like without juice, then the line is already efficient, if it's then minus 107 and minus 113, for example, with juice. Yeah, yeah, that was correct. I'm sorry, I just got confused a bit here. So at that point, I got that mixed up a bit. But anyway, like people will bet on the line until it is efficient, and then the line, well, there's still people betting on it, of course, because well, somehow the bookmaker makes money. But like the people that actually know about the sport, they will stop betting once the line is efficient. So when you have for example, a line for Super Bowl is, I guess, the best example. When you have a line for the Super Bowl and it has been out for like, I don't know, a couple of hours, you can be very, very sure that it is efficient because betting limits are super high. And if there's anyone in the world who thinks that he knows better than the market, then he will put money on it, and then the line will move, and the line will move until an efficient line has been found, and there is no more betting by people that have a clue, only betting by people that don't have a clue. But I mean, you always have those, obviously. And that's the reason why, like, basically when you bet in a market where you don't have so much knowledge, for example, like you like, I don't know, like you like Barcelona, like they play like in the Champions League final against, like, honestly, I have no clue about football. They play against, I don't know, like Bayern München, and like, I guess, I don't know, like you think like Barcelona will win, blah blah blah. Like why would you think that it's a smart bet? Because there's a lot of people probably that have more clue than you about this, and they will have already bet if it is a good bet. I mean, obviously you can bet because it makes the game more fun to watch, but you should not bet because you think you will make money, because the line has been shaped by a very big market, and so it has to be very efficient actually, otherwise the line would move. And if the line doesn't move, well, then it has to be pretty efficient, and so it's no good to bet on it. I kind of hope that point got across now. If you have any questions about this, you can post in the comments, and I might make another video to explain it a bit better. It's not an easy topic to explain. Maybe next time I would prepare like a little like presentation or so. Anyway, of course, there's not only big markets, but there's also smaller markets. Like, for example, well, Starcraft is one, but there's like plenty of like smaller sports, like I guess like volleyball. I've seen like water ball, snooker. I mean, you can bet on all sorts of weird shit, like even politics. But I guess that's actually a fairly big market. But like, there's like many like very unknown sports where there are still betting markets. And if you have a lot of clue about one of those markets, it's actually quite likely that there's not so many other people that have a clue about it, because there's simply not that much like interest in that market. Otherwise it would not be so small. If there's more action in a market, and a market, like, then also probably the market grows bigger, like the betting limits rise and more people join the market. So like to like talk about Starcraft now, because that's what I mainly bet on, and Dota to an extent. In Starcraft, like, you can bet like at most like 250 euros at once or something like that. So for like a professional sports bettor, it's not really worth investing his time like into like creating like a complicated model to beat this market. Because if you can only bet 250 euro at once, let's say, even if you have, let's say, 2 or 3 bets per day that have a positive expectation, if they have like a positive expectation of like, let's say 1, 2 or 3%, like plus 1, 2 or 3%, let's say on average plus 2%, and you have 3 bets per day, that makes 15 euros per day. I think like someone who bets like, I don't know, 10k per bet in whatever big sport, he's not really caring that much about like an average plus of like 15 euro per day. Like, it's just not worth his time. And that's why in StarCraft, like, don't think there's like many like people, or maybe none, like that have like a big model like that beats the market and that will find like inefficient lines very quickly, like automatized basically, like without like working a lot in it. And also in StarCraft, I mean, there's a lot of like new things often, like for example the meta game changes. like when the sixth queen opening was found ZVT, like suddenly Terrans just started losing all over. That's something that is very hard like to like model with a model, because like how do you put that in? I mean, I don't have much clue about modeling, to be honest, but that's something that is very hard. And so like if you notice like a change in the meta game that like heavily favors one race, then that will mean that like all players in that matchup will have like at least a short-term shift in their win rate. Like for example, take CVT. Like suddenly, like generally every CVT that will be played in the GSL, like definitely the Zerg has better winning chances than before, and maybe others haven't caught up to that new trend yet, or well, certainly, well, not certainly, but probably the bookmaker hasn't caught up to it yet, because those things are not so easy to notice. And there's also, of course, other things like maps. I generally think maps play a pretty big role in StarCraft, and sometimes the stats for a map don't really show like whether a map is imbalanced, because oftentimes like the stats they came from a time when the game was less developed. For example, Tal'Darim Altar. I believe it's pretty bad for Zerg against Protoss. But there was a time when Protoss just like died to Baneling Bust, Roachling all-ins, like to drop all-ins and all sorts of weird shit. But nowadays those things, while they can work, like Protoss players got a lot better at defending against it. But of course the wins that were achieved with those strategies, they are still in the win ratio for the map. But like it's actually not something that like should be factored in anymore, because those strategies don't really work anymore. And of course there's new maps. If there's a new map, well, there's no stats for it. But if you are good at StarCraft, or at least you are good at like analyzing maps, then you can like think about like which race should be favored on this map, and you can get an edge. Another thing would be new players. I remember like I think I gave this example maybe in another video before, I'm not sure. I remember MMA. The first time I saw him play, his ID was J-Job or something like that, and he played for Slayers in GSTL. Like no one knew him, and he like suddenly won like 3 games in a row, and he played like super impressive. Like he was not like one of those 2-base all-in Terrans, but he like just like he was like aggressive, but at the same time he took a 3rd base and stuff like that. And I was very impressed by him, and so I actually ended up like betting on Slayers or on MMA, like in matches afterwards. Like even though there were like basically no stats on him, so it was very hard like for the bookmaker to judge how good he actually is. Like just like looking at his playstyle, it was very evident that he was actually a very good player who just didn't make it through the horrible Code A qualifiers yet. So that's why there were no stats on him. Like other things are like one last point example I could give you maybe is like the very quickly changing shape of players. For example, often like players like they get sick, they have like physical problems, like the carpal tunnel like that MVP has, like on other players. I'm not sure which players, but like there's quite a few players that have that. Or like that you get jet lagged, that you have very long travel, that you have delays in traveling. Like for example, the fact that Demuslim and Stefano arrived late in Sweden, like I think those kind of things play a role in your like for your tournament games. I mean, I guess Stefano won anyway, but I would say it was a disadvantage for him for sure. So yes, like there's in a small market like StarCraft, you actually have quite a few like edges that you can find. Like the most of the ones that I told you right now. Yeah, I guess some of those are like still valid. I mean, like the MMA example, of course, isn't. But maybe there's another player sometime that you see in GSTL and who plays actually very good. But I don't know, he just didn't manage to get through Code A qualifiers yet. There's a lot of good players that have taken quite some time to get through those fucking qualifiers. And yeah, of course, I'm not going to tell you every single trick. Otherwise, you will beat me to the lines, and I can't make any good bets anymore. I hope you can understand that. But yeah, I think that's it for that. Let me see my smart little sheet I made. No, yeah, that's actually all I wanted to say. I hope you found this video interesting. It didn't have that much to do with StarCraft, but as I told you, like markets and especially like betting markets, it's a topic that I find very, very interesting, and I like to talk about the things that I find interesting, and maybe some of you guys find it interesting too. So please leave comments, subscribe if you like it, and tell me what you thought about this. Goodbye.